Have you ever had caffeine?
Is that even a question? Yes, of course I have.
Yes, I have had caffeine a lot.
Yeah, I've had caffeine once or twice.
Could you introduce yourself? Name, where you're from, and your age?
My name is Alex Teeples.
Okay, I'm Serenity Kuntz.
Hello, my name is Lilian Dimitrieva.
How old are you?
I'm 16 turning 17 in a week and 2 days.
I'm 17 years old. I turn 18 in February.
I am 16 years old, turning 17 in 4 months.
When I was younger, I used to drink more coffee. Coffee's kind of overpriced now, so I don't really get coffee as much, but I drink a fair amount of soda, I think.
I've had coffee. The only energy drink I've ever drank is Mountain Dew, soda, but I've never had Monsters or anything like that.
Not so much energy drinks, like your typical soda, and I do drink boba a lot, so there's some tea.
How were you introduced to that?
My mom is the biggest tea avid that I know. She buys all sorts of teas from all sorts of areas, across continents. She has so many variants of teas, and she's been drinking tea since I was born, basically. So I've just been kind of raised with it.
When I was 4, or no, I was probably 5. My dad had me try a sip of his coffee one time, and he always brewed his own coffee, and he had French vanilla creamer in it, and I thought it was really good, and so I kept trying to sneak some when he wasn't looking, but it wasn't because of the caffeine. It was just I liked the taste of the French vanilla creamer.
I don't know how many times do I drink it a day. I always get a large at McDonald's, so it's either one of the small cans or a large, and I don't drink more than 2.
I've been drinking maybe 3 cups every week of tea, Earl Grey or black tea.
I try to drink a lot more water now, so I would say I drink a soda maybe once or twice a day, but I try not to go over that, and I've been trying to cut back on that more too. I'm trying to have it a couple times a week.
How dependent on it are you?
How dependent am I on it? And here's the thing, I started doing theater, and when I started doing shows, I think my first show was the 5th or 6th grade. I would just get tired during show week, and my mom's like, here, try some of this during show weeks, just because I wouldn't eat as much because of nerves, and I needed to kind of just have some sort of just energy momentum or whatever. I would drink soda, and that's pretty much how it is. I drink Dr. Pepper especially super heavily around shows because it's how I survive.
I think everyone is a little dependent on it because it's so normalized. I mean, I'm not gonna die if I don't drink it, but it's I'll get a little cranky probably because it is kind of a part of my normal life at this point.
So, have you found yourself ever being dependent on, fully dependent on caffeine or tea or anything like that?
I think maybe when I was in middle school, I was probably pretty 7th and 8th grade. I was pretty dependent on that. If I didn't drink the tea, I would be insanely tired during the school day, and then I would need that cup of tea later, or sometimes even coffee.
How many milligrams of caffeine does it have? Do you know that?
I don't know.
Do
I don't work for Mr. McDonald. The only time I've ever thought about how many milligrams of caffeine was in something was during the Panera charged lemonade epidemic.
Can you explain the Panera lemonade thing?
See, I was waiting to bring it up so I could do this.
Yeah.
Panera released these self-serve, their new lemonades, and it was self-serve, and there was insane amounts of caffeine in them. I think I saw a paper or some article that was it was equivalent to 20 coffees or something, and it was self-serve, so it's anyone can get access to that amount. And I thought that was kind of crazy, because I'm caffeine is a normal part of our lives at some point, but it's not to the point where you're having heart attacks, because that's a lot of caffeine.
Yeah.
and it wasn't even good lemonade. I tried a bit of it, it wasn't good. So
Have you ever had like a moment where it's been a show week or it's been like a high stress situation and you haven't had access to caffeine? And
Yes.
how was that for you?
I think it was just AP testing or some sort of big project event prep. I don't know why. Super stressed, and I think I just cried a lot more. I didn't hold it in as much because I didn't have access to caffeine. I guess when I didn't have it, I just felt more exhausted and didn't have the patience to deal with anything.
a lot of my issues aren't so much because of caffeine. I have a lot of other things that make me tired, like I don't eat as much as I should, or I don't sleep as much as I should. Like, it's a lot of other things. I feel like caffeine is a really small part of it. It definitely helps because if I'm stressed, I just don't eat for like days. So if it helps to have the caffeine so that I'm like actually functioning a little bit, you know. But I think the core issue isn't really caffeine. I think there's people are overworked a lot, like in general, and I think that like between when you're a kid, you know, you have school and you have outside activities, and it's hard to like manage sleep, especially when you're in school. So I feel like caffeine's like very helpful in that sense, but I think there's a lot more core issues that go beyond just like caffeine. I think it's a lot of other things that make people rely on it more.
The reason that you see that caffeine is consumed so much is because of like the pressures that society is putting on teens, on adults. Like everything's moving so much faster, so people need more energy to be able to achieve their goals.
Well, because companies will exploit their workers and they will make them work more than they should be. And when you're in a like lower class situation, or if you're a single mom and you work 2 jobs for your kid, you don't have the luxury of being able to like go to bed at a good time, get up for work a bit, relax. Like, it's very much, I feel like a lot more of the lower class has to rely on caffeine more because of how much work they're having to do to get by. I think the issue lies more in corporations and the way our education system decides to function, and how people in general are always being worked. And then there's also people who just being in social interactions is work for them. Like with me, I'm very introverted. I like get really drained around people. So if I'm not like eating or drinking something, then I will crash immediately. And I like after an hour of talking to people, I'll be like, okay, I need to go. And that's not fair to the people I'm with because, you know, I invite them to do stuff.
So what you're saying is you believe that due to the environment of work today, kind of that, like the amount of work that's being asked of the lower and middle classes, and the amount of like pressures from like even a really young age to be able to get that high amount of work done is causing the higher like need for caffeine to those classes.
Yeah, I think that I think I think people who, or not people, sorry, corporations who make these drinks or like sodas or whatever know that workers are tired, that the middle and lower class are tired. Everyone, they're just tired. It's like and there's a lot of people who work and are in school at the same time. It's very hard to, it's a luxury to be able to get good sleep and to be able to not have to rely on something else to get you through the day. And I feel like caffeine is obviously good in moderation, and if you have too much of anything, it's bad. But I feel like it's a good thing to rely on compared to some other things people might rely on.
That's everything I have. Thank you so much.
I can get this off.
That's great. Thank you so much.
I'm a